Radcast News. Hey guys, Ryan Alford, your host of the Radcast.
You're listening to the Radcast.
If it's radical, we cover it. Here is Ryan and Riley.
Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, it's Ryan Alford. Welcome to another edition of the Radical Marketing Podcast. You know, a little detour here from normal, maybe, but I know in talking to some of my friends, when I told them that I had a certain name to be mentioned shortly coming on the podcast, as winos like that we all are, there was a lot of excitement because I don't know how, Austin, but even Austin Hope in South Carolina is becoming a known name. But Austin Hope, owner and winemaker of Hope Family Vineyards, man, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. This is super cool, man. I'm pretty pumped about it.
Yeah.
Been following you for a while on Instagram, and it's been you always got good content. It's fun.
I love that. I appreciate you saying that. And my team's in our studio here doing some BTS. They'll be excited and proud to hear that too. You know, when you own an ad agency, you got to put out some good content, you know? So appreciate the kind words. And it's been great following you, you know, the winery business, you know, Instagram and technology and different things. It's funny that, you know, a lot of people haven't embraced things. And I know you're a little bit of a rebel as it comes, and we'll get into that. But it's been good following you and seeing behind the scenes of the winery and different things. But I can't tell you, again, how excited I am to have you on and, you know, just want to get into it. So owner, winemaker, let's start from the beginning. So, you know, there's going to be some people that listen to our podcast that, you know, all right, who's this Austin Hope guy? You know, not me and some of our closest friends that were actually sipping on one of your wines last night. But let's talk, you know, a little bit of the history, you know, your background. I know it's a family business, but let's start a little bit. Let's just start with a little bit of the origin story of, you know, your background and, you know, what's led to today.
So I'm we're a third generation California farmer that wanted to race Formula One cars growing up, and now I'm sitting here talking to you. That's kind of the fast forward. But if you start from the beginning, so my folks, they moved from Bakersfield, California. So I was born in Bakersfield. We moved to Paso Robles in 1978 and started planting wine grapes. And so just to kind of give you a landscape, set the scene, in 1978, there was, you know, less than a dozen wineries here. We probably count them on one hand, actually. And, you know, less than 1,000 acres of grapes. And most of my folks started planting wine grapes then, which was, you know, pretty unheard of. And we weren't very welcome into the community. Honestly, grapes were not wanted by locals. So this was very much driven by grain, cattle, some dry land almonds, and walnuts scattered around the hillsides. But it was definitely a dry land, you know, wheat grains that they were growing. And they didn't really go hand in hand together, grape farming and grain farming. So they didn't really like us. It was not an easy thing, and we, to be honest, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. So we came from a completely different background at the time. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, was in the beer business over there in Bakersfield, and he was a Texas immigrant during the Dust Bowl, and was working for a little distributor pushing Swiss Chalet wines and Colt 45 and delivering those beers and wines. Had a one truck kind of deal. And my grandfather was pretty smart about things, and he said when it came up to the gentleman wanted to sell his distribution, he said, I'll buy it. And he'd been squirreling away money, and so he took that over, and he just went and got another truck, and then he kept, so he had Colt 45, Falstaff, and a handful of other things. And then he kept going to Colorado every year and would knock on Adolf Coors' door and say, "Hey, we want Coors. And he says, "Oh, we don't have Coors. We can't go that far." And that went on for a while. And then finally, Adolf said, "Okay, I'll give you Bakersfield to Barstow. That's the territory you can have." And they went from, having, selling a few thousand things of beer to, selling a few million cases of beer in a few years. And my dad had worked for him. And then anyways, fast forward, my grandfather passes away. My dad wasn't in a position to take over. So the company was sold to the general manager. And we borrowed some money from my grandma. So I signed a bank note. And first my dad went to my grandfather's best friend, which was another immigrant that came over, and he ended up in farming and banking and all kinds of things in the valley. And he says, what should we do? And he says, he always called everybody cousin. He said, "Cousin, move to Paso Robles and plant apples and grapes. You can't screw that up." And so that's what we did. I mean, literally, that's how much we did about farming. Quickly learned that apples were not the right thing to grow in Paso. And then just kind of transitioned over there over time into planting the right varieties. We sold our first ranch within a few years and to somebody that had to have it. And we bought 2 more pieces of ground and repaid debts and started farming more red grapes. And then as that progressed, I lived in the vineyards as a child. I mean, grew up in them and hoed weeds every day I was told to. And so I really, grew up in the fields. And then, my uncle came into the business, and he was more aggressive towards the wine side of it. So we started making some bulk wines and selling bulk wine here and there. And then that's where we met Chuck Wagner, which is his family started Liberty School. And then Liberty School, we started over the years, so we started selling them bulk wine. And then Chuck Wagner came down and says, "Hey, can you supply us? We think we want to take Liberty School and see what we can do with it, bring it back out." Because it had kind of gone away in the past. In the beginning, it was truly a second label of Caymus. So whatever leftovers they had off of the Caymus vineyard, they would put into Liberty School. But as Caymus started becoming more iconic of a brand, and that was there wasn't much fruit, so that's where we met. And so the Liberty School was not made there for a while, but then we came back. So we became kind of friends, and then we started taking trips together, and then we kind of came to a conclusion that we should take over the brand and bring it to Paso, because we were already growing it, and we were making it in Paso, and we were bottling it in Paso. And at that same time, Chuck was really becoming, what he is today, the iconic, Cabernet of Napa Valley. And I was getting more involved in the wine. So I moved to Napa, started working for Chuck, and, kind of just learning everything. He was, super gracious, and, would drop me off in the, in this behind the scenes and the, business billing. And then it would be go to the marketing, and then I would hang out in the tasting room, and then he'd send me to a vineyard. And so I kind of got to see a lot of it, the behind the scenes. And, during that time, we had built a little tasting room down here and a bed and breakfast, and we hadn't really jumped completely off into wine. We were having other people make it for us. And it was, back then it was pretty, pretty fun. It was called Hope Farms Winery. It had a cattle brand on the label. It was,
nice.
We were
just really signifies the luxury of red wine, the old cow branding.
Exactly. So we were not sophisticated at that time, and we weren't making sophisticated wines at that point. We were just making wines. I mean, we had several winemakers around here that would make us some Muscat Canelli, make us some White Zinfandel, make us some Merlot, and we really just were. It was a pretty new, novel thing, and we were selling Cabernet chocolate sauce, and whoever was driving to going to see Hearst Castle would pass us, and there wasn't any winery, so they'd stop. And so during that, the wine thing we started talking about. My uncle was really trying to push the family into the wine business. And my dad was kind of, hesitant to really jump off of that because, we had a, good thing going. We were farmers and that's what we did. So meanwhile, while I'm working for him, we went on a trip together. My dad, Chuck Wagner, and Chuck Wagner's general manager, Paul, and my uncle, Paul. And we were in Mexico pheasant hunting, and we were talking, and he says, we started saying, why don't we take over Liberty School and give it a sense of place and see what we can do with it. We wanted to start another brand, which turned into be Triana in 95. So we set it all up, and we were prepared to go, and that was in 95, and got it all together. And in 96, my uncle, which was really spearheading it, who I looked up to a lot, spearheading the wine piece of it, died. Actually today, May 13th.
Wow.
1996.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that, but maybe we're celebrating him now.
Yeah, we are. It's, he would flip a lid if he saw where we are today. So it was interesting because I was, not to get too digressed, but I came from the cemetery just now and put flowers. I go put flowers out there every day, or every the year he died, or the day he died, 13th. And it's amazing, because it really changed our family and put us all into reflection and changed everything we've done. But I think he'd be super proud, and so it's a cool legacy to see. But so, anyways, that happened, and Chuck Wagner asked me, and can I do this? And my dad asked me, can I do this? Because my dad did not want to be in the wine side of it. And luckily I was young, dumb, and, full of testosterone. I'm like, yeah, I can do it.
My dad calls it piss and vinegar.
Yeah. All right. So luckily I said yes. And, it was me, and we hired a wine salesman, and I went and grabbed a guy named Jesse that I owed weeds with my whole life. Classic immigrant story. Came to Mexico illegal, became legal over the years, and still with us today. I saw him this morning. It was a long time ago, but he's brought him in. I said, you're going to learn to make wine. You're going to quit owing weeds. Come on, let's go. And the three of us went at it, and now here we are today. We're in every state in about 9-10 countries, and just we've got five brands, and shit, I don't know, man. I don't know where time went, but we just keep driving and striving and having fun. I
love it. So are we at pretty much, is this year 25 then? I'm hearing, if I'm adding the numbers up right, Triana launching in 95. Is that safe to
Triana
say?
Was 96, the first vintage.
So 19 or 24 years as your own label. I guess Liberty School was always kind of your label in a way, but officially with taking it back. Did you guys take it back in that same time period? Was it a few years before that?
We started the conversation in 95 because we were actually making the wine in Paso Robles at the time back then, because they didn't have space up there. And so it was natural. We were making the wine down here and so on and so forth. So it was really 95, 96 is when we closed the deal, put it all together, and took it down here and gave it its new roots, because the brand was actually started in 75 by Charlie Wagner, Chuck Wagner's father. So it's got quite the legacy, actually.
It's crazy. I told you kind of pre-episode that I had known, I think, in starting to follow you guys, there was some connection to Chuck Wagner, but I did not know the Liberty School connection exactly. So that's fascinating. And, even non-wine drinkers, I think, knows the Caymus and the Chuck Wagner's name. I mean, I'd love to, any insights or perspective there? I mean, one of the best known probably the best, one of the top 3 or 4 best known Cabernets in the world now, I would venture to say. And obviously learning from him, and I taste it now in your wines a little bit, some of the pedigree there. I definitely want to talk about that in a bit too, but is there any insights into, someone that's, a casual wine drinker, you've heard of Caymus, any good Chuck Wagner stories or insights that would be, like something that would be unusual or you wouldn't know or wouldn't expect coming from, again, kind of a champion of Cabernet?
I think probably the biggest thing that Chuck taught me, he never taught me how to make wine. And he, and neither one of us are classically trained in winemaking, which I think is a plus.
Yeah.
And my head winemaker was a welder when he started for me, and he runs all my wine now. So, I mean, we're definitely come from the old school, old farming background. And I think the biggest thing with Chuck and similar to me is we're both dreamers. And if there was any one thing that Chuck influenced or taught me was I would ask him questions, when I was younger, like, hey, what do you think about this? And he'd go, I don't know, try it. I don't know, try it. And I would be like, so that concept, I think, if there was a takeaway with Chuck, is that he's an absolute, he's a dreamer. And I've always been that way myself. So we've always connected because our brains are constantly moving. I think we're both, super ADHD and I know I am, but I know him well enough. I think his mind works that way too. We're very, very driven, and we're always thinking about what we can do next. What about this? What about that? And if you're a classically trained winemaker, not that there's anything wrong with it. I think it's wonderful. But you don't, you have, it's like a rule book, right? You're given this book, and it might be, in your industry too, right? It's like marketing 101. This is what you do. Well, if you don't follow those rules, I mean, typically the people that are the ones that are on top are the ones that steer out of that lane. I mean, you can't live in these things. And we've messed up wine before. I mean, but so what? We've learned some things and some proprietary things over the years that, I mean, people looked at me like I was absolutely insane. I mean, that worked for me. And they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I can. Why not? And I mean, kind of radical shit. I mean,
well, owning an agency named Radical, this is all relating really well. This is why we're kindred spirits. I think we started following each other here. I'm feeling the parallel now.
Yeah. I mean, I think but that would be my biggest thing as far as Chuck. He's a passionate, extremely hardworking man that always is dreaming and pushing the envelope, always pushing. And I think that's what makes greatness, right? I mean, like I said, he didn't show me how to make wines. I mean, we've talked about wines and I appreciate the compliment about, our wines have similarities and it's funny because we've been making wine for so long. It's what do they say? A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, or whatever it is. It's like I think we've been extremely under the radar, and that's just the way we roll. We don't we're never beating a drum very loud. We just do what we do. And if you talk to people in the industry, they know who I am. I'm super aggressive. I've been very aggressive my whole life with them. I've always pushed distributors and in different respects than most of them do. And, being that I was so young when I started, it was interesting. I had to lie about my age around in the beginning because I was only 22 when all this happened, because I wasn't supposed to be the head of this wine company at that age. My uncle was. And so I was kind of just dropped in at a really young age. So, I mean, I'd lie about my age, and a lot of my stuff was on phones back in the day. And but I was very aggressive, and I knew what I wanted. I knew where I wanted to go. And we made wines that were, good, but we never, it wasn't until, I think if you're in an industry or drink any of these wines, a lot of people know these wines, but probably don't associate it with me, right? And I've never been a guy that's like, I need the glory. Yeah. Because actually I didn't even want to name that brand Austin Hope. And it started back in 2000 when we make a Rhone line. So we make a Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, those type of grapes from our estate vineyard where we're at right now. And it was actually Chuck Wagner that pushed me to use that name back in 2000. He was looking at it, and I had, I've got a drawer full of labels and names. I mean, I'm always creating things all the time. And he's like, I think you should use Austin Hope. And I'm like, I don't want to use Austin Hope, man. That just sounds like you're egotistical.
It's a great name.
I am like the most giving, biggest heart guy in the world. And it just felt uncomfortable. I felt weird and thought about it for a while. And he kept pushing on me. He's like, can you use that name? It's a good name. He's like, it sounds good. It's authentic. It's real. It's you. And I'm like, I don't know. So I finally did it on the Rhone wines. And that was, I said, okay. So I did it. And over the, 10, 20 years, you get comfortable with it. And now it's just a brand, right? Now it's like, it's odd. It's like, yeah, we're going to talk about Austin Hope. And it's like, I am Austin Hope. This is weird.
Yes, I get it. Oh, I get it all. And I'm glad Chuck pushed you to it, because let me tell you, I've been branding some of the largest companies in the world my entire career. It is a beautiful name for a wine. And I got attached to it. Like, I literally, the first time I had it, it was purely the name. It's like Austin Hope Cabernet. That sounds like a badass Cabernet. And I'm going to digress for a second. The relationship of the Caymus comment to this, coming from someone that considers themselves, I have a ton of wine. I have 500 bottles in our house. And so, but I'm not a connoisseur. You know what I like about you and Caymus? It tastes damn good. Like, so that's the connection. Now, whether or not there's a profile or this, that, and the other, I know a rich, delicious wine, and there's the connection. But back to the brand, yes, I'm glad Chuck told you that, because it's a perfect name.
Yeah. So when we released the Austin Hope Cab, it had been in making for several years, because actually we went through kind of a struggle. We had some. I made some poor choices on management, and kind of took my eye off the ball, because we were doing really well. And then I jumped off and built a distillery in Kentucky, and so I wasn't paying attention to what was happening, and we kind of went south really fast. And I was like, all of a sudden I surfaced, and the money was all messed up, and sales were going down, and discounting was happening. So I had to kind of cut ties with that whole scene and clean up and rebuild the company and get it back to profitable. And it was a pretty big life lesson for me that I'll never forget, and I guarantee you won't happen again. But so when we did that, the root of this brand is to your point, what you said, Rich. Good drinking wine, right? I mean, you've got critics all over the world. They're going to tell you this, tell you that, and then you've got these connoisseurs, which I'm not a connoisseur either. I know what I like and what I don't like, and
yep.
And that's one of the biggest things that anybody that works for me in sales is, if they have any slight pretentiousness, they're not working with us. Because to me, it's I tell them all the time, I say, demystify wine. Make it approachable, make it easy for people, because it's already an intimidating thing, right? I mean, you're like, because pick a business. I couldn't just jump in there and start telling you what I like and don't like and how it should work. And wine's like that, right? Plus, it's, for years it had this aristocratic kind of feel to it, and it was just, you didn't want to be embarrassed. Nobody wants to be embarrassed. That's the bottom line, right? So you go, you're out with your lady, and you're like, ooh, we have a bottle of Merlot. Oh, it's not Merlot, it's Merlot. Ho, ho, ho. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yes. Trying to produce some of those Rhone varietals too. Good grief. You kidding?
Yeah, right. Wagner,
Yeah.
No, I know. And that's the thing. So we're super, really aggressive on education, demystifying. My dad there was a guy back in the day, he used to sell grapes to, and he was one of the guys actually that was really helped with the White Zinfandel movement from Sutter Home. He worked for him, and we sold White Zinfandel to him back in the early 80s. And he says, boys, let's not make this too complicated. This is not the Holy Grail. It's a beverage that accompanies food. And I'm like, it's so true. And it holds up today. It's like, it's so true.
I love that. So what was the first year of Austin Hope Cab? What was your launch year?
So 2015 was the first vintage.
And a big whopping score from the Wine Enthusiast didn't hurt. 97. Was it a blessing and a curse? Let's just go down that path. So first year's 2015, 97 from Wine Enthusiast. Wonderful or terrible or more? It's got to be more wonderful, I'm sure. But let's talk about that a bit.
Well, the brand was has been in my head and have been planning on something like this for 7 years prior to that. So I went and found, we've been studying soils and really was wanting to create, you know, we always shoot for the highest goal. We said we want to, you know, and my team didn't even know about this yet. So this was me still working behind the scenes, not telling even my winemaking team what we were doing. So we went and found new vineyards, because I know where the best sites for best soils are for Cabernet in this area, because I've studied it my whole life. And because of technology and analytics and being able to test soils and grapes and wine for tannins and all these things that you can go down a rabbit hole forever. This was been in my head. I said, but I want to create this, you know, the standard for luxury Cabernet, pastoral Cabernet. And I want to be able to create it that is drinkable, because one of the things that I don't like about Cabernet is that they know, a lot of people haven't figured out how to do the tannins. Tannins can be so harsh and so aggressive and have a bite, you know, and it's like Scotch, right? So a lot of people don't like Scotch, but they'll say they do because they think it's cool. And it's like, you know, you get that really hard wood in
Oh yeah.
brine, right? And I still believe that half the people who drink Scotch really don't enjoy it, but they feel like yeah, it feels so good. It dries my mouth out so good. I'm like, how's that not good?
How's that good? That's not good.
So anyways, to kind of get to your point, we really practiced, and then I kept making the wine, and we figured out how to make tannins become supple and soft, but analytically still very high. So it would have the age potential, it had the weight and the density that tannins create, but not have that drying, hard feeling. So we developed this basically, I mean, and through a couple different proprietary things that we do, and then just really finding the right soils and using the right barrels and using, like, there's so much that goes into it. But anyways, so just prior to releasing this wine, you know, and again, go back, I'm kind of reshaping the company. We basically took the company, dumped it out, cleaned house, had a whole new team, new finance team, new everything. And I went to my distributors and met with all the presidents of one big organization, and because they have a big convention every year, and so you pin them down because they're all there from every state.
Mm-hmm.
It's like purgatory for them. But anyways, we go in there, and I had dinner with them, and I said, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. I'm going to make this Cabernet. It's going to be $50. It's, you know, we're going to make a fair amount of it. And we're going to grow it. And this is going to be the standard luxury Cabernet for pastorals. And I believe in it, and this is what's going to happen. And one of the presidents, I'll remain nameless because I don't want to piss him off anymore. I've already teased him enough. He says, whoa, that's a lot of wine. And, you know, that's a lot of money from this region. And, you know, we support you, but, you know, don't go index in my state off of your goals. And I'm like, I said, I am going to index off of your state. And he says, well, you're going to have to get a 97 or something to pull this shit off.
Oh my God.
And I told him, I said, I will get a 97. So I don't know if it's a self-professed or whatever they call that, you know, self-prophecy.
You willed it to happen.
I did. But to your point, to your question, it was alarming, quite honestly, you know, because we put so much time, money, love, dedication into creating this, and a ton of money in this, and we went around our distributors. It was really interesting. But I remember I was just right up the road right here when I got a text, and I was like, holy shit. And then it was like, I pulled over. I mean, I literally pulled over. I was like, are you serious right now? I'm like, I don't think that Wine Enthusiast has ever given anybody a score that high from this region. And turns out it didn't. It was the highest rated Wine Enthusiast publication, and their 30 years of publication have given a score for wine that. I'm like, you know, and I'm not a score guy per se, but it is a validation that's real, right? I mean, it's from a very seasoned wine critic that it tastes thousands and thousands of wine a year. So I mean, for them to say that, I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And but what's interesting at that point, it definitely helped light a torch to a couple different things. One was prior to this, so we did a very aggressive promotion on the wine So on premise is what they call restaurants, and off premise would be retail chains. Just so you got the jargon. But so we were very focused on premise, and true ways to build wine brands is on premise, because a lot of times you'll see brands that blow up. It's not that's just being forced in there, right? It's they're really big companies, and if they go to a distributor and they say this is what's happening, they put all this marketing dollars to it. They incentivize all the salespeople, and next thing you know, like a brand like Josh, it's everywhere, right? You can't walk into somewhere and not see a brand named Josh. So that's forcing something into the marketplace. Sometimes they last and sometimes they don't, but they've got to hit the right flavor profiles, etc. The traditional ways that I've grown up doing it is you put it in the restaurant. You need restaurants to pour it by the glass, and then the consumers will tell you. And that's what was happening with this brand. We put, it's an expensive bottle of wine, but what we did is we put incentives in place to where restaurants could buy it at a reduced price to be able to afford to pour it by the glass. So next thing you know, consumers were like, and they just loved it. We hit the flavor profile. So that was the key, right? We did what we intended to do, to create a Cabernet that everybody could enjoy. And it was a reasonable price, right? I mean, because we did blind tastings, and everything we do, we do blind tastings where we tasted against Harlan, we tasted against Screaming Eagle, all blind before we even bottled this wine. Like, do we fit in these frames? Are we as good or better than, a $50 bottle of wine from Napa to a $1,200 bottle of wine from Napa? And we thought we did. And obviously we did. So then the score hit, and then it was like, all of a sudden the distributors were like, yeah, man, we're on this. We're kicking ass. I'm like, dude, what, man, come on. We're realizing 5 months.
Yeah, you're like, holy cow. You called your own, I wouldn't call it a bluff. You knew you had something great. I mean, but called your shot there. It's kind of like aiming to, what was the famous baseball player? I don't know.
Babe Ruth, yeah.
Babe Ruth, the left field or whatever.
Yeah, it was special, right? I mean, and then we followed it up, and then it just went. I just kept going, and now it's like it's to a point where but then it just kept, I kept going. Well, shit, the history of it, right? I mean,
oh yeah, you followed it up with 95 plus scores since, which is pretty unheard of. It wasn't a one-hit wonder. I have a question. Another, I've been drinking for so long, but only know so much. How do you keep, I know it's probably comes from the same, fields and and all those things. How do you keep the profile so consistent? There's definitely nuances. I mean, I have all of these at home from 15 to, I don't have any of the 18 yet. But how do you maintain, I'm sure there's processes, but that consistency of flavor?
That's the key, right? That's what everybody's trying to figure out, right? Because our competitors we've already found out that they've been testing our wines, and because we've got, we're pretty connected. So we hear through grapevine, because we work with laboratories, and we know people that work at different wineries, and when we heard people are trying to figure out our formula, and and it's not a formula, and that was when you go back that 7 years, right? That was why it took so long, because not only is it important that you can be consistent, but be able to grow. If the market dictates growing, then you need to be able to, can I scale this and continue to make the same quality wine? So I mean, and also this goes back 20 plus years. We've been figuring out how to work with barrels, what barrel profiles, what yeast do we use? We've got our own cultures of yeast, and we've really been playing with this for a while. And around Liberty School, right? I mean, it's a great bottle of wine, and it's always consistent. And we're really gotten very good at that. So when we stepped it up to go into this, the higher end Cabernet game, it was super important, and it's not easy, believe me. I just came from the winery earlier, tasting wines, and that's what we do. We open a bottle, and so now it's not a formula, but in a sense, it is a formula, because we deal with Mother Nature, but we know the soils. We know how to manage tannins like nobody's business, and we know what oak works, because oak is something that is definitely influenced in the wine. But I would say we're very good at managing oak, because oak can get away from you very quickly.
Yeah.
And but to get integration with oak flavor, get the good oak flavors and not the raw hard ones, that's the hard thing. So I think, we feel good. We've been able to grow every year. We did a 15, got a great score, 16 followed up with a great score. Then 17, we were a number 10 wine of the world for Wine Enthusiast, which was crazy because that's, that one blew me away even more because it was, they taste 24,000 wines.
That's across varietals, right? I mean, number 10 in the world.
Yeah. So the editors and critics, they taste 24,000 wines a year, and then they throw in what they think their best wine, the best 100 wines they tasted that year, and then they all go round and round. And that was the text that blew my mind. That was like, the 97 already, totally screwed me in my mind.
I know it will only be third place because the 95 and the 20 and the number 10, those are probably 1 and 2, but number 3 can be most popular at the Alford family parties. So, if we could get that on the website, it can bring you some more business. I know. So, number 1 in the world within the Alford residence when we have parties.
Yeah.
So I know you'll cherish that one, but in all seriousness, no, it's congratulations on all of that. I know it's got to, you put your heart and soul, you put your name on it, and to have all that hard work kind of, justified or, again, not even being a score person, which I feel that from you, and I already see that from you, but it still has to feel good and even to your team. I mean, like sometimes those things, even managing teams and stuff like that, means it's kind of pat on the back for them of like, justification and things like that, right?
I agree. I think it, it's like I did horrible in school, right? I got pulled out of school at one point. So grades were just there, right? So you take them for good or bad or whatever, but it didn't mean much to me. But to validate, this is a, worldwide publication that validates something like that on a multiple thing, years in a row. Our team walks proud. And it's interesting because, I've had some of the best publicists in the world. We've done marketing, we've done advertising, we've done, you name it. And I'm always 5 years ahead of where we should be. And that'd be a whole other podcast of things that I could tell you we've done that it's just crazy, blows your mind. I met with my in-house marketing lady yesterday, and she's like, I told her what I was doing with this new brand, and she's like, yep, you're 5 years ahead again. And I'm like, shit. But it's total validation, right? It makes people feel good that on a team and, they're walking prouder. You can see it. But what's interesting to me is like, we've been around for so damn long and we've been successful, but it's like, it's almost like we're a new winery, which is it's uncanny and it's funny. And I've talked to people about it, and it's like, and we've helped, bring more notice to Paso, that makes me the happiest, because honestly, that's the key that you'll take away as you get to know me, is that I'm a consummate, marketer of Paso. I talk Paso first, then us second, because it can't just be one person that's great in Paso. We all have to be great. We all have to get people to come here, and so I do feel that we've helped get a lot of attention. Just in Southern California alone, it's insane. Like I joke with people when they come up, I'm like, where the hell you guys been, dude? Where you been? Seriously, you're 3.5 hours away. You've never heard of us. And now all of a sudden we can't keep you out of our tasting room. You want to drink this Cabernet all day. I'm like, and they realize that, like, oh, I love these other wines you make too. And I'm like, dude, where you been?
Yeah, exactly.
So
how is that? And I do, like, we're going to have some follow-up. I think I'm going to create a wine segment with Austin Hope, if he's down for it, as part of our, like, maybe bi-monthly, if we can keep you interested, because I think we can dive deep in a lot of these areas. But I am fascinated by the whole Napa Paso. I'm sure you guys felt like, the redheaded stepchild that you weren't, by the way, but I'm sure that's been both rewarding, and I am curious, if that is kind of how it felt.
We used to joke. Years ago, we'd always say we're the bastard child of Napa. They come down, buy grapes from us, they take it up there, blend it into their, Central Coast or California Appalated or some of the Napa wines, because you can blend in, a
Yep.
certain percentage from other regions into wine, not even, and consumers wouldn't even know, and by law. No, yeah, we were always a bastard child. And then it was this like, again, people just fly right over us and just go to Napa. And it was all about Napa. And all of a sudden it's like, it's changed. Like in the last, 3 years, really. I mean, it's to see all the people coming here and discovering it makes me happy, right? Because, we are a world-class growing region, right? And there's no question about it in my mind that we can compete, and we are competing. We can compete on a world stage. And so our people ask if, like, what's our goal? And I say, global domination. That's it. Sorry, that's what we want. We want to just drink Paso Robles wines, and we're so much diversity here is what's cool, because, and I think what's bringing more people here, right? They get here, maybe they came because they heard about Austin Hope Cabernet. They love Austin Hope Cabernet, so we get them here, and we show them all these other varieties that we do, and all these other things, and we send them to our neighbors. And the diversity in our region is ridiculous, right? I mean, we've got 11 sub AVAs that we've developed. But it's still Paso, but we can, I've got a neighbor that grows Pinot Noir that if I blindfolded you, you'd think came from Burgundy, because it's a very cool region where he's growing it. Whereas if you go 10 miles east, if you grew Pinot Noir out there, it's going to taste like shit.
Yeah.
We can grow Syrah where I live in the Templeton Gap district, which is the coolest sub-region in Paso, that tastes like Northern Rhone, more leather, more blueberry, more structure, meat game kind of qualities. I can go 15 miles east of here, and I can grow Syrah there because it's the warmest region in the area that will taste like Shiraz, bubblegum fruit, bright. So it's just it's an amazing region that I think we're just scratching the surface on what we can do, and it's exciting though.
I will say that Triana Cab's a damn good bottle of wine too.
So
let's not leave that out.
I should tell you this, but I'm honest to a fault when people get on my ass about it all the time. So Triana came about as that was my practice wine for Austin Hope. So it's that's why I started that brand. So because if you go back to what I said, I've got to be able to do consistency and be able to scale if you're going to make a real brand that's going to be a legacy brand. And so that's how that brand started. And I made it a dedication to the three men that were super influential in my life: my father, my uncle, and Chuck Wagner. And so that wine, we kept doing it. And then once I felt, okay, we got it, now we're just going to turn it up a little bit with the Austin Hope. That's how that brand started. So you're absolutely right. That's a kick-ass bottle of wine for the price.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing we didn't talk about is pricing, because we're, one of the big things for us is I always want to over-deliver. And one of our mottos or ethos, if you will, is to deliver an honest product for a good price. And too often in this industry, mainly not just in the north but here as well, people will just put a number on it. And I've never asked you where do you come up with $85 for that? I don't know. Well, it's we run our company like a business. It's a real business. We analytically look at things. This is what it costs to grape. This is what it costs in barrels. This is what it costs in people. And then we put a good margin on it, and this is what we sell it for. We don't just double it because we feel like doubling it. It's the marketing, supply and demand, all the stuff that goes along with it is interesting. But I really do believe if you go through all of our brands, 90% of the time, everybody will feel like they got more value or more flavor, more value than for the price. So, which that's the end result or end goal, make us happy that way.
So we're, a couple more things, and we'll save some for the next round. But where's this all headed? What's your prognostications for both the industry? I know you're someone that kind of pushes against the grain a bit, maybe with the industry and with the Hope Family Wineries. Any kind of tidbits on where you see things going or changing, holistically, and then where you see the winery going, other than more domination.
Yeah, Domination. Yeah. That's I was in Europe. It's not that long ago. I mean, we're pushing into other markets, and we're already in some of the Asian markets, and we're pushing hard. Like, I mean, I really want, when I say global domination, I mean it as in Paso. Like, I want the world to know Paso. Yeah. And I know the world knows Napa Valley, great, but I want them to know Paso. I mean, just as they do, they know Bordeaux or Rhone or whatever. So that's my goal mentally. As far as where I think the world's going, I think that, contrary to the media that, always just want to spin things into a negative light, I don't, which I can't, that's a whole nother podcast I could go on about. But I think wine is finally becoming a culture. Whereas, I don't know about you, I don't know how old you are, but when I grew up, wine wasn't on our table every night. But at our house, wine is on our table every night. So now my daughters, I can pretty much assure you that her generation now has seen that, right? So yeah, I think you've created where my goal and my thought is, I think it'll be like, I think it's only going to grow. I do think that you're going to see lower quality wines. I think they're going to slowly really have to bring their game up, because what's happening is the consumer's getting educated, right? And that's never happened before. You think about like the awesome Hope Cabernet that we've produced, that we've hit something that consumers enjoy. I mean, this is what I enjoy. Like we talked about earlier, I don't want a drying Cabernet that's like, and it's just like, yeah, you're told this is good. Like, okay, but I don't like it. And I think that, through not only through internet, through social media, our society talks more than has ever talked before, whether it's whatever platform it is, face-to-face, phone, texting, like communication and information is flowing so freely and you can learn about a wine so quickly, you can learn about a region so quickly that our consumers are becoming more educated. And so I think the consumers are going to continue to demand higher quality products. So I don't think that, the average wines are going to continue to go. I think that everybody's going to step up the game, because our consumers, I think, are becoming more educated. And, it's going to take a generation. It always does. It's like the next generations. And all this talk about the millennials and stuff, that's just driving me bonkers. I'm so sick of hearing that we can't market to them. We can't do this. We can't do that. You know what? They'll find their way. I think I think why that particular audience is not or people say they can't market to them, because everybody's trying to do it. And so they're pushing back, because they're like, dude, leave me alone. Like, and we don't do it. We don't do that. We just tell our story, man. Like, this is who we are. If you like our wines, you like our wines. If you don't, then okay, move on. But I think that, they'll go just like us. I wasn't drinking wine at 16 to 20 years old. I wasn't. I was drinking booze, beer. Yeah. And that's just life, man. So I don't think anything's changed. I think it's and everything's always cyclical, right? It just keeps coming around. I keep looking back at things that keep changing, and it's interesting. So I think you're going to see wine consumption continue to rise, but I do think you're going to see wine quality continue to rise, because that's what the consumers are going to dictate.
Yep, I agree, and I think the low guy on the totem pole has you to blame personally for making a killer wine at a great value. Well, cool, man. I really, I think we could go on for 2 hours. I'm feeling this vibe that, we could just keep on keeping on, but I'm going to hold you to maybe getting back together for another episode here. And how's the impact? I've been kind of staying off the whole pandemic discussion for the most part with most of the guests, but has it any impact or anything of note? You guys are probably rocking. It might be increasing sales of people at home, but have you guys seen? I know it's probably hurt your tasting room a bit, but you guys just kind of ready to?
We're it's interesting, because we're definitely off. I think this is what May will be a bloodbath for us. April was okay. The first 3 months were obviously great. We did good. So, go back, I was saying again, we built brands on premise on restaurants. So nationally on all of our brands put together, we were like 58% restaurants. So that's a big impact on us, right? So over half our business. So we had to quickly shift to get to retail, and to get retail authorizations. It's just like any other business, right? I mean, I can't go into Target right now and start talking about selling them a summer line right now. They're going to be like, okay, well, thanks for pitching it now. So we'll look at it maybe next summer. Yep. Supermarkets, same way. So we've already pitched for 2 months ago for fall for supermarkets, just to get into their sets. So we had to shift to different manners, and we're fine, but I think we're going to be off probably by the end of the day. We'll probably be off 10%.
Yeah.
Because our team has been able to push into independent retailers where we could force our way in. But I think what we've also done has been super progressive. I think we were early on in the progressive with the Zoom stuff. I mean, I've done, Zoom things I'm doing one Friday for OC Wine Mart. I've done them for, we've done some things with Morton's. We've done it with steakhouses across the country, and just trying to be interactive. We do Zoom tastings by appointment with one of our wine advisors or our tasting room. But the retail part business that we did have has increased, which is, I think, going to help our business. I mean, stabilize the losses in the restaurant. But definitely it's I mean, that's again the media, right? The media is like, everybody's drinking more and more and more. I'm like, yeah, they're drinking more, but I don't think people realize how much wine is consumed in restaurants. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, it's a big hit, right? So, but our tasting room, we were an early group that, from my point of view, we started going straight to our audience. Like, I went through depression and then kind of woke up, and I'm like, dude, what are we going to do, right? Because we didn't furlough one employee, which was, pretty scary for us. And we didn't take any of the PPP stuff. So we just kind of rolled the dice, and, we've got 60 people that work for us. So it was spooky, but I went and got our tasting room and said, okay, let's get smart. Let's do stuff. My wife and I started thinking, and so we started communicating with our audience. And, we already do social. I mean, that's fine. I mean, we've got our Hope Family Wines that we do, that my wife and another person run. And then, my Instagram is just, random and all over the place. So what do you see on that? And then we started creating cooking videos, because I cook a lot. So I started making cooking videos, and then I showed other purveyors that are wine club members, and used a beef from one of them, cooked a tenderloin, and then I cooked squab from one of my buddies that's got a big squab co-op in the valley. And then just started talking and just being real, like we are, and found that, and my wife would make a playlist and put it into this, and we offered, penny shipping, and our direct business is actually is doing great. It's doing fine. It's really weird. I mean, we don't have anybody in our tasting room, and it's a bummer, and it's sad, because we have such a cool tasting room. It's outdoor. I mean, it's super chill, but we were one of the first to start doing curbside pickup. We started home delivery right out of the get-go. I mean, as soon as it's happened, we immediately switched, and now people are starting to do it more. But I mean, Christ, last Saturday there was a line for curbside pickup. I came down and actually poured some people some taste, So we adapt and overcome, right?
I love it. Well, I'm trying to ignore the media personally. I think there's a lot of fear spreading going on, but we'll save the politics for, another time.
Well, you pretty much summed it up where I'm at. I think it's, I think there's just the fear is what pisses me off. I stopped watching the news a month ago, and it's there's no answers, there's no real things, and it's a shame to see people in such fear. That's my biggest thing. It's like, come on, man. I mean, we're a herd society. We've always been, and we've got to protect the weak, but we got to move on with our lives. I mean, you're hurting people in different ways. I mean,
yeah, and
they go on for days, but yeah, we gotta go.
I told my wife at the second day of the quasi lockdown that the biggest point is no one going, you can't create a bigger problem than you're trying to solve. I think that's the bottom line, isn't it? Like, there's no easy answers here, but you can't create a bigger hole than the one you're trying to get out of. So anyway, I digress. Hey man, it's been awesome. Huge fanboy over here on the wines, of course, but have from afar noticed, a little bit of the rebel attitude and the kind of approach, and it comes through in a delicious wine, but also, a great guy. And I really appreciate it. And I know our listeners are going to be thrilled to kind of hear a little bit of that backstory. The Chuck Wagner stuff's fascinating. And, just look forward to kind of growing our friendship and talking down the line.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's I'm honored and flattered that you did. It's super cool. Like I said, I like what you're doing, and thank you for having me, man. This is cool.
Sweet. Well, this is Ryan Alford for the Radical Company podcast. You can follow along at radical.company or find us on Instagram at radical_results. We'll see you next time.